Thanks for staying with us on the conversation in the first half. We dealt with situations in Sudan where the military has agreed for a framework deal to allow for a 2-year transition to civilian government. But will that deal be kept? Well, we had analysis on the first half, but right now we switch gears to situations in DR Congo where the M23 rebels, one of the main groups fighting in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, have said that they are ready to withdraw from areas that they occupy in the region in respect to the resolutions of last month's summits in the Angolan capital, Rwanda. A statement from Lawrence Kanyuka, the M23's political spokesperson, adds that the rebel group supports regional efforts towards a lasting solution to the instability in Eastern DR Congo.
Now, this comes on the day a week-long round of peace talks concluded in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Although the M23 were not part of the summit, we brought together representatives from some 50 armed groups operating in the mineral-rich region. The delegates agreed on disarmament and a stabilization program for former rebels. Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, the mediator, told delegates that any foreign armed groups based in the restive region should return to their home countries and engage in talks with governments there. Now, joining us to discuss all of this is Nixon Katembo. He joins us from Johannesburg in South Africa. He's a geopolitical analyst with focus on Great Lakes and East Africa, joining from Johannesburg, South Africa. We also have Claude Gatebuke. He's an author, activist and public speaker. He joins us from Nashville in the United States. Also joining us via telephone from Kigali, Rwanda, we have Gatete Ruhumu Zila, is an author and political analyst. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining us in the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd like to start with Katembo. There's been a series of diplomatic moves recently in Rwanda, Angola, and Nairobi, Kenya, get towards negotiating a ceasefire, because we've seen what's been going on in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo with devastating consequences. How successful have these series of meetings been? That question is directed to you, Katembo. You might want to unmute your device, please. Okay, I'll just direct it to Claude while we sort out Katembo's audio. Now, Claude, would you like to respond to that question, please?
Yes, so my take on the talks, the talks themselves have been, it's a mixed result. First of all, they have not prevented the violence in the Congo, but also for me, I think there's a key missing element. If in order to stop what is going on in the Congo, the war of aggression needs to be named for what it is. What's going on in the Congo, the M23 is an extension of the Rwanda military. This has been proven over and over with reports, with eyewitnesses, with Rwandan soldiers being caught in the fighting in the Congo, with satellite evidence. There's so much evidence showing that what is happening is an invasion of the Congo. It's not just an ordinary rebellion. It's an invasion of the Congo by Rwanda and Uganda. And you can tell, we know what rebel groups look like in Africa. They do not look like conventional armies. Multiple countries around the world have condemned Rwanda's support for the M23, but then when they have these talks, they talk about a rebel group that is fighting in the Congo. But what needs to happen is really addressing the invasion of Congo by its neighbors and actually taking the measures that are normally taken when a country invades another country. That is what is missing in these talks. The ceasefire seems at this point that the M23 is accepting it. And by the way, at the negotiation table for the M23 is Rwanda's president, Paul Kagame. And I've said this before. Every time there is a negotiation and the M23 complains that they are not represented, I always say that they are represented because the leader of the Rwanda military is there, Paul Kagame. And so the result of these talks...
sorry to interrupt you, Claude. Paul Kagame was missing from the Nairobi process. He sent his foreign minister, Vincent Biruta. Do you think his absence in any way affected the way the talks went? How significant was his absence?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, and thank you for that. I think at the end of the day, the fact that the Rwandan government is actually out there representing the interest of the M23 it shows all of us who is in charge of the M23. The absence of Paul Kagame is, for me, not very significant because anything that happens, he will have to sign off. Maybe it was just a way for him to save face and not be a part of the signing of the agreements because he does not plan to honor those agreements. And we've seen, by the way, in previous talks where there was agreements and the agreements broken, both many times by the M23 the Rwandan troops, basically. So I don't think that Paul Kagame's absence actually did anything to move the talks because I'm sure that he would have to sign off on any decisions made by his foreign minister.
Okay, thank you so much, Claude. I'd like Gatete to also respond to this. I mean, the absence of the Rwandan president, Paul Kagame, being physically there and sending the representative. And also, Claude talked about the fact that we've had discrepancies with peace talks and the sides not still respecting the ceasefire. So do you expect the M23 to adhere to the ceasefire? And of course, the absence of Kagame presently, physically there at the meeting, did it have any significance? Gatete, can you hear us?
Okay, I think we've lost Gatete.
Okay, I don't know if Katembo can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, would you kindly respond to that, please?
Well, the absence of Paul Kagame, in a way, it's in fact sort of abrogating the responsibility to the Foreign Minister Vincent Biruta. In a way, it tells you how much the government in Kigali is not genuine about seeking solution in Eastern DRC, and rather, allowing this continuation of talks after talks while it is pursuing its military ambition and the expansionist agenda in that particular region. And it is not surprising to me because you recall that some times ago, the Rwandan government was saying that it has nothing to do with what is going on in the DRC, rather the internal issues of the DRC. Now, the question that we need to ask, why is it that Rwanda is finding itself on the table of negotiations on the issue of the DRC, if it is not part of the problem which it has been denying all along? And like my colleague said, Claude Gatebuke, it has been the modus of operandi on part of Kigali, denying after denying all, despite evidence that have been brought forward by numerous reports from the UN group of experts. And what are the key issues here? We really need to understand that there is no difference, particularly with the communities in North Kivu, Eastern DRC, and South Kivu, mostly, and those in Rwanda. And here we need to make a difference that the Congolese populations at large and the Rwandan populations, they share common histories, they share common culture, but the problem is the ruling elite in Kigali and in the DRC as well, in a sense that on the other hand, on the DRC, there seems to be a weaknesses occasioned by the destruction of the state institutions in the wake of the fall of dictatorship of Mobutu Sese Seko. And that was deliberate from the West because they have used the Rwandan regime to invade the DRC, to get rid of Mobutu, and therefore to create chaos. And that left kind of a weakness, a weak state in terms of state institutions, the DRC, and hence you see that the attempt to reconstitute the army in that particular country have failed because of the failure of the institutions of the state in galvanizing its internal affairs to respond to the security threats that are posed in the East. But it is by design, because you see that all the claims that have been happening from the rebellions, from RCD to CNDP, from CNDP now to M23, the call has been the reintegration and the reinsertion of those involved. But we know for the fact that those are mostly Rwandan military officers, and if not, some Congolese Tutsi who have lived who are Congolese actually, who stay in Congo, who are brainwashed by Kigali to live this dream of expansionist and making sure that Kigali drives this agenda. And mainly for that is about the mineral wealth, holding the mineral wealth of the natural resources of the DRC on the account, rather serving the multinational corporations in the West.
Thank you, Katembo. Now, Claude, a few days ago, the United States Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, said he had a productive meeting with President Paul Kagame to emphasize the need for peace and security in the Eastern DRC. Last week, President Paul Kagame, in a speech to Parliament, spoke about the DRC for 43 minutes. But in a Twitter statement, Rwandan Foreign Minister Vincent Biruta said a wrong and misguided approach was being taken by the international community. And this approach by the international community has made things worse. What do you think, Vincent Biruta? I know you're not in his head, but what do you think he's trying to say here? And what do you make of President Paul Kagame's language these days? He spoke for 43 minutes. He said President Felix Tshisekedi was trying to buy time and because he wants to postpone elections. So what do you make of all of this?
So I think, without even being in his head, I can say with full confidence that what Vincent Biruta was saying, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Rwanda, by the way, just so the audience understands, I am from Rwanda. So when I speak about Rwanda's aggression in the Congo, I'm speaking from a Rwandan who is conscious that of the common humanity and cultural and relationships that we have with our Congolese brothers and sisters, as Nixon just stated. Now, what Vincent Biruta was saying, they didn't like what the U.S. was saying to them. It seems that the U.S. is gotten to the point where now they are asking Rwanda, whom they actually unleashed on Congo, to withdraw or stop supporting the M23. Or to withdraw the M23, which the M23 is a part of the Rwandan army. So they are starting to feel the pressure. The U.S. is feeling the pressure, and they're pushing the pressure down on the Rwandan government to finally admit that this is a war of aggression and Rwanda needs to withdraw. So I think that is what Vincent Biruta was saying, and I'm saying that with a lot of confidence, because if they had liked what the U.S. was saying, if the U.S. was saying, oh, continue, keep doing what you were doing, we'll continue giving you money, military support and everything, as they have done, as most of the West have done, then Biruta would have been praising.
But isn't it contradictory? Claude, isn't it contradictory? Just last week, the European Union gave the Rwandan government 20 million euros. So if they think they're supporting M23 and destabilizing the DRC, why would they go ahead to do that? Because giving them money is a sort of endorsement, saying, look, you're doing a good job. We don't see any bad in what you're doing. This is an endorsement. So what do you make of the 20 million euros in military support that was given to the Rwandan government?
I was jumping at the bit for that question, in fact, and especially being on a Pan-African TV station where we actually speak the truth to power. What we have in Rwanda, the M23, going back to the Rwanda military, going back to the West, the M23 is an extension of Western imperialism and neocolonialism in the Great Lakes region of Africa. Paul Kagame and Yoweri Museveni, Paul Kagame of Rwanda and Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, are the local plantation managers for the West. They have the endorsement of the West to wreak havoc in in Central Africa, in the Great Lakes region of Africa, but they also serve as mercenaries for the West in various parts of the world. So the justification for the $20 million was for Rwanda's military's operations in Mozambique. But what it is when you give a war criminal resources, they commit more crime. That money is going to subsidize Rwanda's military's invasion into the Congo. So there is total and complete hypocrisy, speaking on one hand and acting on the other. Their actions do not match their words. They recognize that Rwanda is supporting the M23. It's not support. It's an extension of the M23 is an extension of the Rwanda military.
Okay, I'd like to play here from Katemba. Claude, sorry, please, we're far out of time, and I want Katemba to have his thoughts on this. And while you talk about hypocrisy and all what is going on between DRC and Rwanda, we're going to have final talks in January. I mean, are you hopeful that these talks will be fruitful, or we're just going to continue having this peace talks and back and forth, blaming Rwanda, and still the people get to suffer it? What are your hopes for January?
We have to be very clear on what is happening here, is that as long as Rwanda is not called out for its activity in the Great Lakes region, in particular in Eastern DRC, there will be no peace. However much people go for talks and after talks, I'm very clear about that, and we shouldn't, beat around the bush to think that there will be peace without Rwanda's being called out by those who support the regime in Kigali. And let me go back to what Claude was explaining in terms of why the 20 million euros have been given to the government of Rwanda. You would recall that earlier in the year, Rwanda sent troops to Mozambique to fight Islamists there who had attacked
Cabo Delgado.
Cabo Delgado, and most importantly, what is there is the natural gas of which French energy company Total had invested over $4 billion in that particular project. And you'd recall that in the same breath, Total Energy is investing in a pipeline coming from Uganda in Hoima up to the port of Tanga in Dar es Salaam, in Tanzania. So you have those investments that the West is looking at, and particularly with France, where you recall that out of these investments, Paris sort of kind of a diplomatic rapprochement with Kigali. You recall that France has been at loggerhead with Kigali since the RPF took over power in 1996. So you see a change of diplomatic approach towards the regime in Kigali because of these interests that are in the region. But not only that, when it comes to energy explorations, particularly with oil that was found in the Virunga National Park in Eastern DRC, you know that Total was the explorer, including
Nixon, I wish we could go on, and it's important that I establish this fact that we reached out to the Rwandan government for a representative, and they declined to comment. So in order to have a balanced panel. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of today's conversation. I wish we could go on, but it's a topic that the conversation continues, exactly. So thank you very much, Nixon Katembo and Claude Gatabuke, as always. Thanks for your time and contribution.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, this is where we draw the curtains in today's conversation. The first half of the program, we did look at the political situation in Sudan, and we just concluded our conversation on the situation in the Eastern DRC. And Benga Borough, thanks for being a part of the program.
And you can follow up on the conversation on our YouTube and social media platforms at News Central TV. Let us know your thoughts on the discussions being discussed on the conversation. I'm Rita Modi. I do see you again on Friday. Bye-bye. Bye.